Alright, this is the review for the 7th grade fall semester. This is 7th grade. So I'm going to put 7th grade. If you do get your parents to sign this, to acknowledge that you've watched the video and that this is when your test is, and for you 7th graders it's going to be that day, you can get 5 extra points. So, now, I have helped y'all through a lot of these questions, just one-on-one, but I'm going to go through all of them. You can skip through the ones that you don't know. I'm going to go in order, and so ones that I've already talked to you, just skip through the parts. You don't have to watch this video in its entirety, but I would like you to have at least seen the video to see the ones that I didn't get to you, because there was just too many kids. Alright, so we're going to start with this one, and this one was pretty tough.
Media Zapata need to ride the bus home today. Media Zapata need to ride the bus home today.
So, the thing about this one is you need a picture because it doesn't tell you. It tells you that this is the garden and is 28 feet and 24 feet. And then he draws a blueprint, so it's going to be even smaller. He has the garden and he tells you the scale. He tells you what the ratio will be. Now, I don't really like this fraction because I can't put it into my calculator, but I can change a fraction into a decimal pretty easy. So, I would go 3 divided by 4 and get 0.75. So, instead of 3/4, I'm going to put 0.75. And you may have known that off the top of your head anyway. Now, because I have two sides, and I have two sides that I want to correspond with, that means I need 2 ratios. This isn't just one, I need 2. Okay? So, that's probably what threw you off. Because it gives you 3 numbers, or it gives you 4 numbers, and you don't know where to go with there. So I need 2 ratios. One for the length, and one for the width. Because we know the length and the width. Alright, so I have the scale, which this is feet, and this is inches. Alright, so this, I'm going to... well, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to say that this is in inches, so I'm going to go 0.75 here, and it's 2 feet. Then I have 24, which is, or excuse me, 28, because that's length, and I don't know x. So I'm going to cross multiply, divide. Here. I'm going to do 0.75 times 28 equals 21 divided by 2, and I get x equals 10.5 inches. So inches is what I need. Now I have to go and do the exact same thing. This is my ratio, so I'm going to have to reuse that ratio. Again, feet to inches. The feet, this time I want to find what it is for 24, because I now know this is 10.5 and I don't know, so I have to cross multiply again. Clear? 24 times 0.75 divided by 2 is 9. So this is 9. So my answer, this is 9 inches. So the answer that they want, the dimensions, is going to be 10.5 by 9. Or you could write by if you wanted. So that's the answer that they want. But notice you had to do 2 ratios for it to work. Okay? We already did number 2 in the class. Let's go to number 3. Number 3 was really hard because of the way they ask it. Alright. So it says she printed out a large banner for her store. Then she made a scale drawing to create for her flyers. she used the scale factor of 1/5. And again, I'm going to try to make that a fraction. If it goes evenly, I'm going to use the decimal instead of the fraction because it's easier. So 0.2, it does go even and easy. So I'm going to go 0.2 instead of 1/5 to create the flower. If the perimeter of the larger one, so this is 95 inches, what is the perimeter for the smaller one? So essentially you have to multiply by the scale factor because she started with the larger one and went to the smaller one. So you're going to have to go essentially 95 times the scale factor of 1/5, and that's going to equal your perimeter for your small one. Now, again, I want to use the decimal when I can. So 95 times, whoops, and I get 19. Did I do that right? Yes. 19 inches. So it is 1/5 the size, so this should be 1/5. Now you could have also done 95 divided by 5 and you would have gotten the same thing. But factor means multiply, so you should multiply by the decimal. Okay. We started on this one, but I hadn't finished it. Alright, it says create a statement that justifies that these are similar. We'd already talked that the angles make it similar because they're all the same. Now we got to talk about corresponding sides. They have to be proportional. And I started setting it up of figuring out how they're proportional. So what I would do is I would set up yellow and yellow, compare them to pink and pink. Okay, so the yellow, I would do 4 and 2 and 10 and 5. And we talked about this very briefly at the beginning. Remember, if you multiply these and if you get the same equal thing, that means that they are similar. So 2 times 10 is 20. 4 times 5 is 20. So they're equal, so those are proportionate sides. Now, I also want you to look at it. 2 goes into 4. 2 is twice, or 4 is twice as big as 2. 5 is twice, 10 is twice as big as 5. Look even here. 6 is twice as big as 3. 18 is twice as big as 9. So they're all in the same ratio of 1/2 or 2. You would do 6 times the 1/2. I'm going to do times here. 6 times 1/2 to get the corresponding side. That's that scale factor we did on the last problem. Okay, so now it says Casey enlarged a wrapper of her favorite candy. What is the value of X? So this is a straight proportion problem. Yes, they tried to trick you by putting it as a candy and trying to make it just look a little different, but it is a straight proportion, solve for a similar figure. So you would go, I'm going to draw my yellows on top, my pinks on the bottom. So it would be 4.5 and 3.75, and then 22.5 and X. So cross multiply divide. So it would be 3.75 times 22.5, and then so this is 800 equals 4.5x. Thank goodness we have calculators, or these would get a little crazy. Then we divide by 4.5. and you get x is equal to 18.75. And it doesn't give me a dimension, so I'm just going to write unit. Okay? Alright, this one is another scale problem. Alright, we're comparing inches to miles. So inches to miles. Now, 3.5. Again, if I can change it into a decimal, I'm going to try. So 3 divided by 5 is 0.6. So if I can make this 0.6, I'm going to. So inches is 0.6 for 3 miles. They've given it to me. Now, if the distance between city A and B is 10 inches on the map, what's the actual distance in miles? So I don't know miles, because that's what the x is, and I know 10 goes with inches. I just have to cross multiply divide. So this is 30, and this is 0.6x. So I would divide 30 divided by 0.6 equals 50. X equals 50 miles. And that makes sense. If it was 7,000 or something like that, you're like, that would be across the world. And you couldn't really measure that on a map. But 50 miles, that's easy. Okay? Now let's go to 7. Alright, so Derek has a ladder leaning up against a building, and then he has another ladder leaning up against a building, and it tells you the distance, and it tells you they're both at a 40-degree angle, and this would be a 90-degree, so that means that they are similar figures because they have equal, they're not the same size, but they have equal angles, and we're going to use a proportion to find out the sides. Alright, the weird thing about this one is they're not turned the same way. So I'm going to mark him out and redraw the little guy away from the building, but where I can mark him. This is 10 feet. I know this is 45 degrees. Alright, so, and I know this is, I knew I had one other thing I was missing, 4 feet. Alright, I got that solely from the picture. Now I have the situation. I have to, this is a corresponding side, and this is the corresponding side. Set up a proportion. I'm going to go over here. 25 feet over D, 10 feet over 4. And so I put the oranges together and the yellows together. And then I need to cross multiply divide. So 4 times 25 is 100, and 10 times D is 10D. Divide by 10. D equals 10 feet. So that is the distance right here. That is 10 feet. The ladder is 10 feet from the building. Not too bad. Elaine is visiting the Fort Worth Zoo. At the entrance, she saw a map of the park. The legend on the map is 125 inches for 3.5 feet. So 125 inches, 3.5 feet. Alright, so I'm going to highlight inches in yellow and feet every time I see feet in orange. So this is going to be orange. This is going to be yellow. Okay? Now, it says how many inches. Ooh, I don't know. That's going to be my X. How many inches? So I don't know this. This is my X. Is 14 feet. So now I need to cross multiply divide. 1.25 times 14, then divide by 3.5, and I equal 5. So x equals 5 inches on the map. Okay, now we're at number 9. In a drawing below, triangle ABC is similar to triangle XYZ. Identify all the corresponding sides. Alright, so looking at this, it's turned wrong. So we're going to have to redraw it. I'm going to redraw it kind of systematically to look like this one. So I'm going to draw the long side. This is the shorter side of this one. And then I'm going to draw down like this. So it's slightly smaller than the original, but there.
Kate Spears, come to the office, please. Kate Spears, come to the office, please.
Okay, so now the long side I know is 8. But now I have to make sure I'm labeling it right. This is A, and the A and B are close to the short side, and so this is A and C. So the short side is 4, and the longer side is 6. I picked this one just because it was easier to kind of relate in the numbers. So now I'm marking it away. I don't want to look at this ever again. I want to use mine from here on out. So now, what side corresponds with AB? Well, XY. What side corresponds with AC? XZ. What side corresponds with ZY? CB. Okay? So then I can set up whatever ratios I want. And it says 3. So I'm going to set up 3. Alright, so I'm going to set up 1 with my yellow sides corresponding with my pink sides. Okay? And I'm purposely kind of doing this weird. Normally I have them on the top, but now I'm going to kind of do them apart. So I'm going to say 5 and 4. So here's 5, here's 4. This is the big guy, here's the smaller one. Alright, so what corresponds with that? 7.5, that's pink, and 6. So there's 1. Now, if I would have written them the other way, that would have also been right. So, though this doesn't really count as another one, the same proportion, you could have this one, or you could have 6 over 4 and 7.5 over 5. That is the same ratio as this one. I also am going to now compare the yellows, and I'm going to do them on top this time, just to show you that it really is okay to switch things up, and the oranges. So I could set up this one. Okay, so the yellow, 6, goes with the other yellow, 4, and I just jumped across, but as long as they're corresponding, I'm good. And then what goes with, I said 6, that's a 5. I think I said it was a 6 earlier too, or a 5. Oh, I called it a 5 earlier, sorry. Okay, so 5 and 4, and then I would do orange, which would be 10 and 8. So that's also one I could set up. And the last one, let's compare the pink and oranges. This time, again, in another effort, I'm going to put this one on first. So I'm going to go 6, and what's here? 8. So 6 and 8. And then the corresponding side is here. So 7.5 over 10. Again, you could cross multiply all. Notice the numbers are different, but they are all ones that could prove similarity. Now, number 10. A lot of people had trouble with this one, so I may have already talked to you about it. The tricky thing about this one is it tells you the ratio. And when you get it in a ratio form, rewrite what they want. This is width, this is length. because they're telling you length and then they tell you width. So this is going to be 13, this is 8. And then they ask, this is length. So the pink is going to be length, and everything that is length I color pink. And then the 8 is width, and then I don't know. That's going to be my X again. So cross multiply divide, I'm doing length and width. So the length is 13, the width is 8, because the width is yellow, the length is pink. So the length is 28, and I don't know X. So get out my calculator again. And 13x, so this is 13x equals 8 times, sorry for the glare, 28 divided by 13. Oh, I've done something wrong. Did I do this right? With the length of the tennis court, the scale drawing is below. Width is 8 to length 13. Width, the length. If the length is this, what is the width? So X is 17.2. Alright, I'm going to check this one with my key. At this moment, I don't see what I'm doing wrong. I'm tired. I apologize. We'll talk about this one tomorrow. And to just end on a bad note, sorry guys, the rest of these, there are 6 more problems I'm going to put in a second video. So this first part, this is the first part of the video, and you can watch this, and then I will have the second video up later today. Alright, bye guys.